You guys ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
do
can
it.
vape too.
Okay, cool.
This is a
Cool.
All right.
vape. What's the word?
Vape appropriate setting.
Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we have two wonderful human beings. One goes by the name of Nicole, who is, and this is a first. We've never done this before. Nicole is one of our therapists here. She is what are you?
Licensed clinical social worker.
A licensed clinical social worker, and she's one of our primary therapists here at Rock Recovery Center. And we also have a young gentleman here by the name of Nick. Or do you go by Nicholas?
It's whatever you prefer.
Either
or.
Nick is an actual client here, and Nicole is his primary therapist. And they were sitting in here. Originally, it was just going to be Nick and I, and Nicole came in and they started talking, and and I'm like, well, this stuff can all go on the podcast. Why don't we just start recording? And they were both like, yeah, oh, okay, good idea. So anyways, here we are.
Here we are.
So this is a first. Don't worry. Nick has signed full releases and everything. He's fully aware of what's taken place and that thousands upon thousands of people are going to see this. And
No pressure, Nick.
Yeah, no pressure at all.
yeah. But first things first, thank you for tuning in on YouTube. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you for listening on any of the podcast apps that you have, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play Music. We're all over the place. And in the end, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to either myself, Tom at realrecoverytalk.com, and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to ask you for your phone number. We cannot have meaningful conversation via email. Would you guys agree with that?
Agreed.
Yeah, like it makes sense to, talk on the phone, chit chat.
Yeah. I mean, and anything through text or email can be misconstrued, so it's better.
Yeah. You can't portray emotion in
when
a
you
text
type
or
yeah. Right.
So,
It's
anyways.
more, what's the word?
What's the word?
Personal.
Personal, yeah. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing good.
Do you have any idea what we're doing here?
No clue at all. No clue.
He's a good sport.
Yeah, I'm just here for it.
Yeah.
So listen, in the end, this is I want you to think through you're looking through the lens or speaking through the lens of somebody like it's a friend of yours. Maybe it's a mom or a friend of yours or a spouse or somebody is looking to you for some sort of guidance. Because let's face it, you have how much clean time do you have now?
32 days.
You have 32 days. And there's people out there right now that are listening to this that either themselves or somebody they know isn't clean at all. They're high right now. They're drunk right now. Mm-hmm. There's a parent that doesn't know where their child is right now. And you are somebody that has put together 32 days clean, free of mood and mind altering substances. So they have every right in the world to talk to you about what you have done and what you are doing. So as we're talking, I want you to kind of think through that mindset of this is the person that I'm really portraying a message to. And Nicole, you know the deal.
Yeah.
So let's just start. Nick, I want you to just go back because there's some things in my mind. I'm going to pause right here. I should ask this before. Is there anything out of bounds that you don't want to talk about?
No, everything's good.
Okay, because I wanted to bring up how you were adopted and...
everything.
Okay.
Everything.
All right.
Okay.
Everything.
In my mind, I know there's some things that just through conversation that we've had here that I do want to cover on the podcast. And obviously, we're going to get the therapeutic side of this. And I think that's why this is cool, because I'm not a therapist. We all know this. Nicole sees things more through a therapeutic lens. I'm more of a just practical, like, I don't know, just
practical. You're very logical, and
yeah.
but we're a good team because of that.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I want you to go and just talk a little bit about your childhood, what it was like growing up for you, and then when drugs really got introduced and kind of how that took place, to begin with, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Well, originally I was born in Carson City, Nevada, and I was in foster care for about a year until my adopted family, they came and got me, and we went back to North Carolina, and I think my dad, he ended up getting stationed in California. But when I was born, my biological parents, I think they said I was born stillborn, and I think it was over 7 drugs in my system or something like that. And I ended up withdrawing in the hospital for about 2 weeks. So from the start, I already had that, in my genetics, or, with me since I was born. Mm-hmm. And I think when I was about, I want to say 3, or probably about 3, when we moved out to California. My dad was stationed in Camp Pendleton, and I was always, we had a pretty good childhood. It wasn't perfect, but me and my brother, we was always getting in trouble. We was always doing things that we weren't allowed to do. Anything that you said no to, we was going for it. It was, I think, my first time ever getting introduced to drugs. I think I was about like 7, 10 years old, and neighborhood kid, one of our friends, his father, he was growing marijuana in the backyard, and I think he ended up getting, he ended up getting raided once or twice while, we was over there, but, we never touched anything, but, it was always, I was very sheltered as a child, me and my brother. So we was always, either kept outside or being told to stay outside. It was, I don't know, my mother, my father, they were very overbearing, and they always preached to us how not to do drugs. We could never do drugs, stay away from all of that. And I had a hard time finding my place when I was growing up. I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't know who I was. But me and my brother kind of always stuck with each other. But I think it was 2017 is when we moved out to South Tennessee when my father retired. And we weren't really into drugs, or we were still getting in trouble. We were still breaking the law. We were still doing anything there possibly was to do that was not right or wrong. And I think my first time really starting to drink or drug, I was about 11, 12 years old. I started hanging out with the wrong people because I was always pushed out. From school. All the popular kids, everyone who was really friends, they kind of knew me, but I was always kind of alone because I felt like I didn't fit in. So I hung out with people who were always pushed out. So it was, we'd go out and we'd just do anything bad. We didn't have a lot of money, so if there was money to be got, we were gonna get it no matter what. So that's when I started smoking weed, started selling the drugs, and it was kind of under control because I was doing sports, I was playing sport. I still had good people over my head who wanted me to do better, but I always felt that I still haven't found my place. I still wasn't making any friends. I was still kind of, doing my own thing, and I was always told I couldn't be this kind of person, or I was always this type of person, or I always felt like I couldn't just be myself. But I think it was about probably about my junior year is when I really started to get heavy. I started selling weed. I started selling a good amount of it, and um, through that, if I couldn't find any money, I would end up taking my mama's prescriptions. She was prescribed morphine and Percocet and all these other painkillers, so we'd take them, sell them, and we ended up, started to use them, and that just started a rabbit hole. Anything that could fuck us up or get high, that's exactly what we would do. And I think it was one day we were trying to sell and make a trade, and another buddy of ours, had said he had some pills, and it ended up being fentanyl. And originally I was standoffish of that, but we got it, and as soon as that powder hit my nose, it was over with. It was like I was just born used to it. Like no matter what, it was gonna be in my system. And from that day forth, it was, anything that I'd done, it was 4 pills. I was pretty good at baseball during high school, but during that, I was gonna go to college, and because of my drug use, I dropped out of college just to sell these pills, just to do these pills, just to work, make money. I'm gonna live a party life. I don't need no degree, none of that. My main focus was these drugs, and really I was really living a double life, because there was the school side, my family side, and everything across the line of the Tennessee border. And when I went over to the Alabama border, I lived right on the border of Alabama and Tennessee. It was all about drugs. It was all about money. It was all about women. It was all about selling drugs. It was like, and it just got to a point where nobody really seen me anymore. Nobody really knew who I was. I was pretty much in the streets just doing what I do best, and that's make money and get drugs. And, I never thought it would come to that, but, I was doing awful things to good people who really didn't deserve any of it. And it was, it come to a point where I was going car hopping. I was robbing people. I was stealing from my own parents. I was stealing from my own brother. I was doing everything I could just to get this high. And I think when I was about just over 18, my parents had enough of it, and they told me not to come back. I got kicked out, because I was never at the house anyways. I was always out getting drugs. Wake up early in the morning, be gone all day, and wouldn't come back just to have the house was there for me to sleep, and that's it. If I could sleep, if I wasn't withdrawn, then I'd be in there for days, So I ended up I was couch surfing for a little bit, went over to a buddy's house, and, over time they ended up kicking me out because of my drug use. I ended up going back home, and it was about 3 years after doing this when I went and come back home. I kind of just sat down with myself, and I was just, tired of being sick. I was tired of being depressed. I was tired of not having anybody there for me, doing these shitty things. And, I went up to my parents. I was like, hey, I truly need help, And even then, I couldn't be honest with them about my drug use or what's been going on. So I told them, I was like, listen, I have a problem and I need help. And they were, within the day, I was on a plane, and I was going to a detox in Panama City. And that was my first ever treatment.
Well, I want to pause you there, because there's a lot of stuff that you covered that we need to get into a little bit more. As far as when you were growing up, and the reason I want to bring this up is because it's common amongst a lot of our clients, and not even our clients, just people in general. Anybody gets introduced to drugs and alcohol, and I say anybody, the vast majority of people, there is some sort of yearning for being wanted.
Belonging.
Yearning, like belonging somewhere. And one of the things that I heard from you in the beginning is that you never really found that until you started using. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah.
And Nicole, I want you to go into a little bit, like from a therapeutic standpoint, what you see with that, with especially young adults that come in. And listen, I do all the pre-admissions, or not all of them, but a lot of the
them.
pre-admissions when people come in. And one of the questions is, when we're going through your substance use history, age at first use. And the vast majority of people, 13, 14 years old, you know? And so we see, and we have data that can show most people are introduced to drugs and alcohol somewhere in between the 12 and 15-year-old range. And I have to be led to believe, because listen, I get there's a euphoria to it, but that sense of belonging, and that was my experience, that was your experience, that's been the hundreds of people that I've spoken to's experience of, yeah, we were sitting at a football game one day, and, you know, these were my buddies, and we started smoking weed, and there's, as crazy and nutty as it sounds, drugs do build bonds between people. And so go into it, Nicole, what you see from really a therapeutic side of it.
Yeah. Well, to second what you said, you know, we do see often that when people come in, their first drug use is during that time frame of like 12 and 15. And like during that time, that's when we're developing a sense of self. That's when we're starting to socialize with our peers and figuring out what it is that we like and don't like, and autonomy, if you will. And so if, for example, especially for people that have gone through stuff like Nick has, where he's internalized his experiences a certain way, where it sounds to me, Nick, like you said, like you were looking for a sense of identity. You didn't know who you were. You didn't know exactly where you belonged. And so that creates like a core belief about himself, right? And so when he started using at that age, not only do you have the social aspect, because you gravitated towards the people that were on the outskirts of like the cliques that were in school. And so you found that group of friends, you have that social piece, which we see a lot. And then you put drugs in the mix, which when you're using any type of drug, our brains let out these chemicals that typically are let out during times of bonding, like oxytocin or dopamine or serotonin. And so you have the mixture of the social aspect along with the neurochemical aspect. Of course, it creates a bond, not only with the people, but with the drug itself, creating that sense of euphoria. And, oh my God, I need this feeling. For the first time, I feel like I can be me. For the first time, I feel like I belong. And during those crucial times of development, I mean, that happens. It makes sense when you look at the development piece along with what drugs and alcohol do, along with the social aspect. And so a lot of people feel like they find themselves for the first time with that, especially if we've had these internalized like negative core beliefs of whether it's like, I don't belong anywhere, you know, I'm not good enough. And finally, I don't feel that way right now. And then, mind you, there's people that go through that and they don't have the disease of addiction, and, you know, they go on through their life and they don't get hooked on it. But if you have the disease of addiction, that's like that right there, that it turns a switch. If that makes sense.
No, yeah, it makes perfect sense. One thing I do want to bring up, Nick, is your dad, he was military, Marine Corps.
Yes, sir.
How do you feel like, and this is me just speculating, I can see this being as, you know, he's a military guy, Marine Corps, like very regimented, very, you know, things are done this way,
certain way,
make your bed, like, you know, those sorts of things. Was he that type of guy?
Well, it was kind of a mixture of both. I really think he had his shit together on how he raised us. Well, for me, he was very strict, you know, I think it was from 2000, in 3 from all the way to 2017. He was deployed over 7 times,
Wow.
both either 7-month or 9-month deployments. So it was really my mother who took care of us. But when my dad was home, it was, it was respect her. No, like no more bullshitting around my dad, because he really takes things serious. He was, when I was growing up and he wanted me to get into sports, he was very tough on me. He was very, he was loving and caring about it. He would never, go step over that line. He was always telling me what I needed to be told, or, when I was in the wrong, he corrected me. I don't think he was ever, he definitely held himself with structure, and that he liked structure in our house. So I guess when it came to me wanting to go outside of that, and I knew what was right and wrong. I knew what I was to do and what I wasn't to do, and if I wasn't follow that, he held that upon me, and he was very, he wanted things to be done a certain way, but in a meaningful manner. He wanted me to be raised right, and he took that very heavily, and for everything that he done, I praise that man for it. I was a kid at the time. Certain things I couldn't see what he wanted, what he was seeing, or what I was doing could lead to things up in the future. But I wouldn't say he was too hard, but he was very strict in his ways. And if I wasn't to follow those ways, I was a kid, there'd be repercussions for that. So
And that can be confusing too, because you had that when dad was around, but then he'd be gone for like 9 months.
yeah.
So that's hard.
It was very different between how my mother raised me and how my
Right.
father raised me. Because my mother was always around. It was easy to go around her. She was the nice, loving and caring mother. If I asked her for something and she said no, I'd ask again, give her the puppy eyes, and she would all right, maybe so, yeah.
Yeah.
And then but with my father, if I come in, ask him something, no means no attitude, no nothing. That's it. So when he come home, it's business, and when he's gone, I kind of took that and ran with it. So I was like, oh well, my mother's more lenient, then I can get away with a whole much more stuff. So it was, I kind of felt, now that I see it now, my mother taking a lot of shit from me, just because I felt like I get away since my father was gone. I
Right.
get away with a lot more shit. And even when he wasn't deployed, he was gone from 4:00 in the morning to 6:00 in the afternoon. So my mother was really there for all of it. I wouldn't say my dad was absent. He wasn't absent at all. He was always there. But I kind of took advantage of when he leaves. It's playtime.
Right.
It's go time.
It's very like two completely
Yeah.
conflicting ways of, well, it sounds like they parented different. So, and you knew that. And as a kid, you're like, well, if I can take advantage, I'm going to.
Yeah. For me being a kid, I kind of noticed how things
Right.
worked, and it was kind of a routine. All right, when dad's gone, I got this time to go and do out and this, because my mom, she would give me that choice, but I would run with it. But
Yeah.
I knew when my dad would get home, that's time to be serious, and that's time to
Right.
So I definitely knew how to play both sides, and I definitely knew how to get away and get around things for sure.
Right. And as kids, we crave structure. We crave that as far as like love and nurture and a place that feels safe, but also structure. And I mean, as a kid, even though like now as an adult, you can look back and see that, but as like little Nick, that's confusing. That can be tough. You know?
Yeah. For me, it was some things that they would do is hard to understand and
Right.
hard to
Like conceptualize.
Yeah, for sure. But me doing all this to my mother and to my father, it was kind of, I was always getting in trouble. I was always acting out, and my mother was there to see all of it. And it got to a point where it was all the time. So whether I was in the right or wrong or not, it was her against me and against my father's word. So growing up, it was whether I was in trouble or not, they were always on edge. You know, I came. It was, you know, the facts lined up, everything lined up to where they kind of had to be. Like they knew where I was, like what I was gonna do, and they had, you know, in their mind they had every right to think or, you know, perceive what I was gonna do, just based on all the shit that I've done before. So,
Right.
but you know, I was, you know, oh well, they're always against me, you know, always
Right.
this or that. But you know,
And there's a lot of fear on their end,
yeah,
you know, and as far as like what was going to happen to you and your brother because you guys are getting in trouble. And so that probably made them more strict,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And that ended up reinforcing the belief that like I can't be myself, even though at the time you couldn't see that they were doing that because they were afraid.
yeah. And
know?
there got to a point where like enough was enough, and
Right.
so after a while, I kind of moved on from being that type of way, and it was hard to gain their trust back. You know, it was hard.
yeah.
It was hard to do any of that. So, you know, for these times or periods where, you know, I was actually like on my shit and getting things right, it was like they kind of got used to it, so they would find every little thing, you know, I was fucking up or doing nothing. In my way, it was like they held me to a standard because they wanted a better life for me.
But how did you take it?
I didn't see it that way.
Right.
You know, I didn't see it like that at all. I felt like I couldn't be myself because they wanted me to be this certain image. So, you know, no matter who I was, no matter what I did, you know, it was wrong in their eyes.
So therefore, like, not good enough, right?
Not good enough. Yeah. I wasn't holding up to a standard that they wanted me to be, you know.
And there's a lot of shame with that too, because the way you speak about your dad is you have a lot of respect for him and you love your dad. And so feeling like you couldn't live up to that standard is hard.
Yeah. And that's, and like, my intentions weren't to hurt them or to come off true. So when I did get in trouble, or, you know, when stuff was said or done and actions taken for that, I always felt like I couldn't, you know, I've always wanted to live up to my father, in every way possible. You know, he was a great man. And, you know, he's always there for me no matter what. But for me, it's, you know, trying to be something that I feel like I'm not, or trying to, you know, like all I'm trying to do is make them happy. And every time that I feel like I'm doing what I want to do, that makes me happy. It doesn't make them happy.
And then that's the conflict right there between you and them. And, you know, and that what you said was perfect, because that's the exact example of what I was saying, how when we go through life and we have these experiences, right? The experience is like what happens outside of us, right? So the whole dynamic between you, mom and dad. But the internalization of those experiences is very individualistic, and we all internalize our experience different. And so even though I know their whole idea wasn't for you to feel like not good enough, but the internalization of that experience was, I'm not good enough.
Yeah. Right.
And then we end up leading life through that space. And without knowledge that when you're using, it creates it takes that away. It's like a false sense of bonding. It's a false sense of coping, but you don't realize that in the moment. It's not like you're saying, I'm not good enough, so I'm going to like snort fentanyl. It's very subconscious. But as you're sober and you start doing the work, which Nick has been doing, and I'm so proud of him for doing this work. It's not easy. It's not easy. But in doing that, you're starting to realize, okay, this is how I felt back then. I've been trying to find who I am. I've been trying to find my voice. I've been trying to find my autonomy. And you found that, just not in the right places.
Yeah.
You know, but that it's part of your process. It's part of your journey. And like one of the things I tell you and I tell all the clients I work with is it's really about what you make of it, of your pain and what you've experienced. You can make meaning from it. And you're doing that now. So
yeah, well, it really took a while. From what I was saying from my story when I first got on to, you know, starting this whole detox thing, I got flown out to Panama City Beach, and there's a place, Recovery Bay. I told them, hey, I just want to detox. I got this job up in Kentucky, you know, I'm going to go do that. I just need a detox, you know, in my mind, that's all I needed. I didn't know how sick and like how everything worked. I didn't understand everything. You know, I thought, you know, I was doing these drugs for fun. You know, they were fun. You know, they made me feel good. You know, I don't need these. You know, I just happen to get addicted. My body relied on them. That's it. That's the only problem. So I had no deeper understanding of what addiction truly was. So
Well said.
I told my parents 7 days. I told the facility 7 days. On that 7th day, I called my family, and they were like, "Hey, yeah, you're not coming back for another 30." I started like crying, everything. You know, I broke down. I was like, "I don't need this." Cussing them out, everything. About week 2, I sucked it up and I just dealt with it. You know, I tried my best to understand. I'd done everything, but yeah, I guess in my mind, you know, like I still feel like I didn't have enough. I wasn't finished. So, you know, as soon as I got off the plane, got back home after those 30 days, straight to the Pug's house, straight and got more, and the addiction started
Again.
Yep. I stayed out for another month, and it took a while. It took a while. You know, I really had to sit back and think of what I was doing, where I wanted to be in, like what I didn't learn, what I didn't take from that month, and you know, nothing had changed. Nothing had really changed at all. If anything, it was worse. So I ended up going back to the same place, done a month there. And in that time of me coming back for that month, you know, my brother was in the same thing, same situation. But I ended up talking to him like 2 days that I was there. I ended up talking to him. I told him to go to rehab, and he went to that place. After a month,
Panama City?
Yep. After a month, I followed. I seen him one day, and you know, he, as a little brother, he led as an example for me to get sober. You know,
Wow.
He had what I wanted, and I was always the one to lead him and protect him. And so far, this whole recovery aspect, you know, he's done wonders for me. He's someone that I look up to, that I want to be. So, you know, my plan was to do another 30 days, but he said, "No, fuck that. I'm going to sober living. I'm going to do PHP." And he's going to spend about 6 months there. And I was like, oh, I had to think on that for a while. So I done a month there, and they called, in fact, I tried getting into this place, and they were like, "No, we don't accept brothers right now.
You remember who you spoke to? Do you remember who you spoke to in regards to that, or no?
I think, I want to say Ben.
No, it was me.
You?
I was gonna say it was probably
it's
Tom.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No, I remember.
You know, it's real quick before I forget, and I think this is important to note for families, that when you were in detox, right, and your family was like, "Nope, you can't come back. You got to stay another 30 days," and your reaction, like, get ready for, you know, for people to have that negative reaction, and it's the disease talking. You weren't ready yet, but a lot of times parents will cave and be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you can come home." But it's normal. It's okay for them to have a negative reaction. You were okay. I mean, yeah, you ended up going back out because you weren't ready yet. But my point is, like, you know, you're going to have that moment of like emotional breakdown. And that's important for the parents or families to like keep the boundary. If that makes sense. Am I making sense? Like,
yeah. They kind of like, I wanted the 7 days, but they seen the bigger picture on like, what I truly needed. But personally, like, I wasn't ready. So, you know, I thought I could do it. You know, I thought, you know, everything, but inside I still wanted that high. So when I went out, you know, I ended up going back out and using again.
How did that help you though?
Yeah. So when I first went, they're like, you know, detox is enough. 2 weeks is enough. A month isn't even enough. And I was like, "Oh no, I got this. I can get sober. I can do it on my own." So I was like, I'll go back home with 30 days and see how it is. I'll feel it out, you know. And at that time I wasn't taking any suggestions. You know, I was doing things my way. You know, I want to do it. You know, I want to get sober how I want to get sober. And so,
have we heard that before?
Yeah.
So when I went back out, you know, I was like, as I was using, I'm like, damn, like everything they were saying is true. Like everything they said, they was right. They was right. And you know, it took me a while to understand. And I was talking to people from Recovery Bay. You know, I was trying to, you know, get more insight and I was trying to ease my mind into going back because I kind of suffered there. You know, it wasn't a bad place in no means, but you know, I still wanted to get high. So
internally you were struggling.
Yeah, I was putting myself through that. You know, I couldn't find an easy way. I was making it hard for myself, really.
And a lot of people feel that way too. Like, you know, if I were to leave the drug and alcohol, then everything's fine. How you were saying you didn't understand the process of what addiction really is. And Maya, who's another therapist here, I love that how she says this, where if it was alcohol or the pill, anybody that would pick that bottle up would then have the same issues. And that's not the case. It's not the alcohol. It's not the drugs. It's an internal issue.
Yeah.
But you didn't get there yet. You didn't see that yet.
Yeah. And
it took all these things. That's what I was saying. Like, it took those experiences for you to get to this place of realization.
Yeah. And honestly, I thank God for everything that I've been through. You know, I really couldn't, like, everything that I've been through, you know, it's teaching me more. You know, it sucks that I have to go through all this shit. It sucks that I have to, you know, I have to live out on the streets. It sucks that I have to get kicked out of my, it sucks that people have to tell me to, like, basically leave. I don't want you no more. It sucks. But the more, like, it's you know, it's the more that I see that, the more that, you know, I see all this going around, all the shitty things that's happening, it's the more I learn, you know.
I hope parents really take that and hear it from somebody who suffers from this disease, who has parents and is, you know, that's so important, that part, because sometimes families, because it's so fearful, this is a disease it's life or death, right? And so they have just panic and pure fear, which is completely justified because they don't know what's going to happen. But those consequences that you experienced were one of the key elements to you getting to this point. Yeah. Right? But it's hard for families to allow them to have those consequences. Rightfully so, because as a parent, it's counterintuitive to, like, being a parent.
One thing I do want to say in terms to that, and I talk about this a lot, consequences are good enough to get somebody sober, but it's not good enough to keep somebody sober.
Amen. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think people struggle with the most, and especially for somebody like you that's a young adult, because you're how old?
19.
So we have a 19-year-old guy here, young adult, that is, you know, let's call it what it is. I mean, this is really your second go at getting sober.
Yeah.
The cards are heavily stacked against you, as we know.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's you. It's because it's, you know, you're 19. Like, it's I don't know. It's just been our experience with young guys and girls. It's tough. You know, I got sober at 26 years old, and it was tough. And I think there's something to be said about the age, you know, where, because I played in my head, well, my DOC was alcohol, you know, and I'm like, who really gets sober at 26? I mean, come on. I'm going through a phase here. Every 26-year-old drinks. Not every 26-year-old drinks to the amount that I drank.
Right.
One thing I want to talk to you, Nick, about is what happens moving forward? Because I'll be honest, like, before you getting here, you know, the recovery community here is small.
Yeah, I found that out.
Yeah. It's small. Everybody knows everybody.
Yes,
you know,
like,
everybody talks. And
he's like, I know where this is going.
I didn't know. Kind of like, it was like, well, the jury's out on Nick. I don't know how this is going to pan out. But you surprised the hell out of me from the day you came in. And I remember after doing your pre-admission on the phone, I called Ben, and I was still kind of like, I don't know, you know, because you're very respectful. Like, you're a very, and I think that's because you were raised in a military household. Like, it's yes, sir,
right,
no, ma'am, or yes, ma'am, you know, that. And I respect that from people
very
so much.
You don't see that as much anymore.
You don't. But with that, there's, you know, and I think this is my, I guess, bias, if you will, with working with so many young adults like you. There's always a part of me that's like, is this manipulation? Is he really this nice, or is he just trying to, you know, butter us up, tell us what we want to hear? But honestly, like, I think you've surprised me in the sense of, like, your maturity level at how old you are. the way that you speak, the way that you present yourself. My biggest fear for you, though, is that we gain all this momentum and something so stupid takes you back out, you know, and again, it's not because of anything that you've said or you've done. It's just because of your age and, you know,
well, it's a time in where he's at in his life, you know, when someone's so young, like, it's just tough. Like, you're still developing a sense of self and who you are. And then, like, people your age, like, drink and do that kind of stuff. So it's just like where he's at in his development and process, you know, and combination with the disease of addiction is really tough.
Well, I'll try to cover everything.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Go for it.
All right. So, like, being raised in this military family, but you know, by the time I was a teen, you know, I was out on the streets. You know, I was, I was in the trap houses. I was doing everything. So I was living a double life. You know. You know, like I said, you know, where I went to school at, where I lived at, you know, it was yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, you know, everything. I knew how to play that card. And it was out in the streets. I knew how to play that card. It's really my experiences on how I grew up in different, so like where it comes from, all walks of life, you know, living in California, living in the country of Tennessee, you know, living in the streets of Alabama, you know, it's basically comes down to experience. And, you know, I know how to hold myself, and for me, I'd like to be given a chance, and I'd like to be respected and seen as one. As I'm talking to you, I don't like to be seen as 19. You know, I don't want to be seen as age. It's what I've been through. It's what I have to say. You know, it's the respect that's given.
Well, you have something to offer of value regardless of your age.
Yeah, and you know, like going back to that, you know, I'd like to say that like any 19-year-old that's in my position, or you know, that was in my shoes, you know, that's still out running, that I'd like to say, like, to be given a chance and to be shown, you know, there has to be some leeway with that. You know, you got to put in the work as well. I had to put in the work as well to be given a chance. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well said.
And about the reputation. So you know, when I come out to sober living, you know, my brother came here first. I went to another one just 20 minutes down the way. And you know, my mind was on recovery. My mind, everything was. You know, I thought everything was gonna come to me. A new job, you know, money, a girl, a car, an apartment, everything. I was gonna get it. And this place, it didn't really have much structure. It was really up to, you know, we had clinical in the morning, and after that, you know, it was all up to me. And
kind of like your home growing up, you got away with stuff.
Yeah, I did get away with stuff. You know, I took advantage of that. Right. You know, I thought, you know, I could do things my way. So, you know, I was playing the part, but not really. You know, I was working the program.
You were doing the two lives again, right?
I basically, I was living both lives. And so during that, I let this woman get in my head, and you know, I wanted that. You know, I wanted the pretty lady. You know, that's what I wanted. You know, in my mind, I was good. You know, I've done like 3 months of recovery. I'm gold. I'm golden. Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine.
And you know, after a while, I think it was about a month. You know, I ended up getting kicked out because, you know, I mean, this lady was, you know, fiddling around. She got kicked out. You know, my mind wasn't like in the right place. It really wasn't. You know, I wanted the external things, not the internal help. So for me, you know, I spent 4 months out there, you know, and I ended up getting into crack, you know, spending all my money, everything I earned, everything, you know. I ruined my life even more, as well as I ruined hers. You know, and we kept on going back to the same place, kept on repeating the same things, you know, and, you know, that was the last place that I had, you know, like recovery was on the back of my mind. I wanted the external things. I wanted to go in, do my time really, and just get out and live life. And I wasn't really taking it as serious as I should have been, or as I wanted to. I truly wanted the help, but I truly wanted the high. I truly still, like, I still wanted that, you know.
That's honest, yeah.
So, I built this reputation. My brother came here before me. I was in and out of this sober living and detoxes down here. I was doing the Florida shuffle and all this getting around. Everything is true to be said. There's no doubt in my mind. Everything that's said, I've been done. But I was, when I, it's hard for somebody to hear all this about somebody. It's hard for all this, off of everything that I've done, off of everything. It's hard to, he says he wants to be serious. It's hard to take that account that he actually might want to take this serious.
Right, because of your actions.
Yeah. My track record shows that I don't want to be fucking serious. So for me, it's having to, truly finding myself that I actually want to get sober. I gotta let go of everything. Everything that I have. My number one thing in my mind is recovery, and I gotta help myself. I gotta figure myself out. I can't have this pretty woman. I can't have all this money. I can't have this nice job if I don't have myself together. No woman wants a guy who's 19 years old and rehabs, just jumping back and forth, and I don't have nothing in my life to give. I don't have nothing to get. And it's not all about the woman, it's more about myself, but my mind was in the wrong place. And I was at this last detox, after coming out this trap house, losing all my money, losing every clothes, everything I had to my name gone. I came to Florida with nothing, and even more was taken from me. So I was in this last detox, and that the old place told me they're done with my bullshit. They can't have me back, and they get in touch with Rock, and Ben comes down and he's talking to me, and he's like, "Listen, don't even think about coming here unless you get rid of that woman, unless you get rid of the distractions, unless you're actually truly and honestly and sincerely serious about recovery." And I told him I preached that I really wanted this thing. And coming here has honestly been a blessing. It's taken a lot, but taking these suggestions and doing everything that I can, giving my will over to you guys, doing what I thought I knew, I don't know anything. I truly don't know anything. This is the one time in my life that I'm actually can just listen to somebody. Stop trying to be all grown, stop trying to do things that I think I know, or that I do things that I want but maybe don't go along with what I truly need. So doing that for myself is I found that I really it's easier now. I was making things hard on myself for no reason. I made it harder than what it was made out to be.
How did it go from, what helped you to get from that mindset of doing it my way to, this isn't working, like this last detox, and then coming into Rock? What helped you shift that perspective of wanting recovery?
Just the people that I hurt, just myself that I see myself doing. I came down here to get help, and I'm in this trap house, this abandoned house, doing smoking crack with the woman that I thought I loved, it hurting her as well, bringing her down in her recovery, and having all my clothes taken, all my belongings taken, having nothing, having to walk miles back to my recovery just so I can go back to the detox, realizing that that I'm just really bullshitting myself, not doing it for myself, doing it for the external things, get right for this girl, get right to have this car, get right for my family. So they think, I really got for me, I really, really had to dig deep in what I truly wanted. And I didn't want to give up all these things. I thought I could just be in recovery and have all these things. For me, just seeing all the experience that I've had in my life, listening to the people that's been through this, and actually taking the time out to think, what, this hasn't worked, I'm gonna try it this way, actually give this a chance. And not doing it my way has worked tremendously.
That, and I want to validate the shit out of that for a second, because for so long, Nick, you've been essentially being rebellious and bucking the system, if you will, because you've been trying to find a sense of autonomy. And that was your way of having control in situations where you didn't, especially growing up. And you've had that mentality up until now. And now you've let go of that very thing that you thought was actually creating your sense of self, but it wasn't. It was actually creating more chaos and more issues in your life. And you've let go of that and surrender to the process to take suggestions. That goes complete opposite of what you've always done. Does that make sense? Like, that's huge. Like, for you to say, you know what? The only thing I have control over is me. I'm going to let go. I'm going to start to take suggestions. That's before it was like, you try to get a sense of self by like rebelling. Now you've done the opposite. Now you're like, you know what? I'm finding myself by not doing that, by actually letting go, taking faith in the natural progression of this process. And you're actually finding yourself out more this way than doing the rebellious side. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And, it sucks, but I don't think I'd be here unless I've been through what I've been through.
That's right.
Sometimes it truly takes so much just to, actually see what's going on, because like in my addiction or just in my mind, like I'm blind to see everything what's been going on is stopping me from getting to where I want to be. And that's being sober, that's actually living a good life. And, it goes to like, you guys giving me a chance as well, like that chance that I thought that I never had, that chance that, I can actually be myself and, not feel some type of way about it, feel that I'm actually, wanted, that I feel that I'm cared for, feel that, what I'm saying actually matters. And for me to have that, it's so much easier to be vulnerable. It's so much easier, I'm not going to be laughed at. I'm not going to be pushed out. People are here for me. And just when I get to that, I'm here for these people. I want people to feel what it's like to actually like feel at peace with, being yourself and, being not like, I thought it was all fun. I really truly believe that it was all fun. And it was just, I was just medicating myself and it's, to actually come to this program and find something that actually works and to understand who I was and what had happened and everything that's led to where I am now. And, finding out about myself has helped so much. And that's really the only thing that got me through everything that I've been through.
And I want to say that, like, when he came in, going to what you were saying, like, we weren't sure what was going to happen when you came in, but one of the things that I, as a therapist, that I really focus on doing is allowing the person to, regardless of what we've heard, allow them to show up and be themselves and give them that opportunity. And I was telling Nick this when we were sitting on the couch. I was watching this. There was a new documentary about Shaquille O'Neal. Have you seen it?
No.
It's really good. Anyway, and I was watching it last night, and when he was starting out and playing basketball in like middle school, he was terrible. He was really bad at basketball, and like people would say that, like, you're this big guy and you're never going to be able to play and you're never going to be able to amount to anything, kind of, rhetoric. And he had one coach back then that believed in him and said, I want him on my team. And even though he wasn't the Shaquille O'Neal we know, then this guy believed in him and set the bar high for him, regardless of what his reputation was. And that reminded me of Nick, because when someone doesn't believe in you, then why would you then step up to the plate? And sometimes we need one person to believe in us when we don't see it in ourselves, and it provides you the opportunity to be you and to trust that you know you, and you develop that sense of self-worth by learning to trust who you are and giving you the opportunity to be that and not judge you based on this bias of what your actions were. You aren't your behaviors. You aren't your mistakes. You're Nick. You're a human being.
Yeah.
You know?
I believe that my intentions are true, that I'm a good person,
You are,
that I try
yeah.
to do good things. But, you know, going through this and doing the things that I've done, and having the reputation that I have, it's hard to break from that,
Yeah, of course.
all the things said about me, all the things that I've done, they line up, they match up. I can't trust that I believe that I feel like I'm something I'm not, but whether that I know like what I am, I have the records to show on what's been said and what I've done. Okay, I'm a shitty person, but what I truly want or what I truly feel like I am, it's easy to look over the little things that I do in life and see all these big things. So all the bad things, skip over the good things, for me to believe that I'm a bad person, I can't see any of the good that I've done in my life. I can't see any of the good that I truly mean or feel. So seeing that bad, it's hard to trust myself or even feel like I am what other people see in me that I don't. So, learning who I am and even going over all this trauma, going over all the things that I've done, it's made everything so much easier.
Yeah. And you'll start, part of, your process will be, and everyone's process here, hopefully, is to start seeing that and seeing what we see in you and learning that you're not the things you've done. Because you know yourself better than anyone. We all do. It's just we don't trust ourselves because of the shit we've done in the past. But in a way, those things then reinforce the belief that I'm not good enough or I'm a piece of shit you've stopped that cycle. So now by you doing the right thing for Nick, you're going to start to gain that self-worth. You're not going to be doing the same things you were doing before that reinforced that belief in the first place. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now you're actually doing things that are good for you, and you're going to start to see the person that you really are, not base yourself on your mistakes.
Yeah. And honestly, turning my will over and honestly
Huge.
just giving everything a chance. It's so much easier. I made it so much harder on myself.
Yes.
I'm not gonna disintegrate when the girl leaves me. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, you heard that.
Yeah. I'm not. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna fall into a million pieces if I don't do this or if I don't do that. Like, just taking the suggestions and like. I'm still I'm still not perfect. I still have a lot of things to work on.
Yeah,
but
you're learning.
Yeah, but it's become easier to trust myself and how I feel, and it's easier
That part.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
you
do
believe this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a testament to what removing the substances will do.
Yes.
Because these things that you've done in the past and the the reputation that you have built, the vast majority of it has been drug induced. A lot of the bad things that we've done, the people that we've hurt, the relationships that we've ruined, so on and so forth, is generally speaking when we're under the influence of something. Now you remove that and you are willing to take a look at yourself internally, you're naturally a good person, and those good traits are going to start coming out of you, and then people are going to start seeing you as the good person that you really are,
right?
Not this, young punk that is just out to steal and rob and then the only other thing I want to say, and we got to wrap this up, is all these things that you want are so realistic. I mean, it's what any normal human being wants. We want a relationship. We want healthy relationships. We want romantic relationships. We want a good job. We want, a nice car. We want all these things, tangible items. And I think, and I've said this time and time again, tangible items, these things that we want, are extremely important in our sobriety journey. And I think, and some people will not argue me, but we could have a long discussion around it. I think it's one of the most important things in the beginning. And the reason that I say that is because it gives us, I can't expect Nick to come in or any other person to come in and just have this emotional revelation right out of the gate. Like, there's still things, I'm over 12 years sober, that I'm learning about myself. I still see a therapist over 12 years sober, you know? So
It's
we're
a process.
constantly molding and learning new things about ourselves. And one of the things that when we start gaining these tangible items, and they are actually an asset to us and not not a depreciating asset, I suppose.
That's the finance talking.
Yeah. We're not willing to give these things up. Now, in situations like yours, I would say, listen, I want you to make as much money as you possibly can, as quickly as you can. So as long as you are emotionally and mentally in a state to where you can do that and it not get in the way of your recovery.
Yeah, it's like perfectly said. Yeah.
Same with a female.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I can't get all this money. I can't get this good female if I don't know my self-worth. If I'm not right in the head, if I get all this money and I still want to get high, all the money's gone.
Yeah.
If I still want to get high, I'm going to hurt that woman.
Right.
It's not going to go good. I got to know my self-worth. Treat others how you want to be treated. I got to know myself. I got to know what my self-worth is if I want the worth of the objects or items or people or family or loved ones that I want in my life.
Yeah.
And real quick, what you were saying, like, as you do that work, those things will organically start to come into place in the right time. You know what I'm saying? Like, you doing that, you'll end up getting this job because now you have, your head on straight. Your recovery's first. So you're going to find a good job, and then you're going to have a sense of purpose, and then you're going to have a car, and those are the gifts that recovery will give you in the right time as you are okay.
Yeah. And the thing that I'll say, because listen, in people in your shoes that are in early recovery, both men and women, generally two things always take them out: money or sex, relationship,
Yeah.
in particular, romantic relationship.
Yeah.
Those are always the number two things that the moment that we can stop chasing those things is the moment when they start to come into our lives.
Yes, right.
And I talk to our clients a lot about my in particular situation when it came to romantic relationships. I and this is a long story. I'll give you the 30-second version of it. 26 years old. Didn't understand the whole mental, emotional side of my addiction, Wanted to have some sort of romantic relationship to kind of fill that void. Was looking for that. Not in any sort of dangerous ways, but what I noticed was I was focusing a lot on, going on dates and so on and so forth. And I went on some really, really rough dates and put myself in a lot of peculiar situations, because I was so, I wanted to have that person, I wanted to love somebody. I wanted to have sex with somebody. I wanted to, do all these things. But it wasn't happening in the way that I wanted it to. And I finally made the conscious effort and I said, you know what? I'm not going to look for this. I'm not going to pursue this. I'm not going to do any of this. And it was 3.5 years into my sobriety. And I'm not saying this to scare you that it's going to be 3.5 years till you find the right person. I say this because when I stopped looking for it, and it was probably a solid 2 years that I went where I just wasn't looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came, I knew it, and I met my wife in the second, in this, it could be in a friggin' book, I suppose, a romance novel or something.
Sweet.
I saw her and I'm like, this is the one, and slowly but surely started. And this relationship was built off of, I was emotionally healthy. I was mentally there. I had a job at the time. I was able to pay my bills. I was financially responsible, all of these things. And God put this person in my life, right when it was supposed to happen. And the same with my careers, all of these things. I've interviewed for 2 jobs. Well, technically for 4 jobs my whole entire life. You know, and in my sobriety, I had 3 interviews all in one day. And then the other interview that I did was well before I got sober. You know, so I say that meaning opportunities present themselves when we're not looking for them.
Mm-hmm.
When we focus on, because we get clients that come in here all the time and all they're worried about. And honestly, when I did your pre-admission, one of the things that you said was, I just want to be able to get out and start making money again, so on and so forth, which is fine. It's a pre-admission. You're sitting in detox. I expect somebody to say that. But something changed for you and you came in and you quickly realized, okay, this maybe isn't as important as I thought it was. The same with the female. And that's what we need from people, is to realize, okay, in the moment, this isn't that important. And it's not going to be that important for the foreseeable future. Yeah, we want you to go get a job. I don't care what you do. Go make something. You're not looking for a career. You're looking for a job. Put a few bucks in your pocket. Give you a sense of responsibility. You know, we'll help you manage the money in whatever way we can, so on and so forth. And doing these things and not rushing to get to it, not rushing, like there is no finish line. And then simultaneously, Nick, what I see in if I could predict the future and what success looks like for you, you complete here, you complete the 12 steps, you get a job, you're making money, you're responsible with your money, and then you're helping another Nick. You know, and once you get to that point of now you start to see the accomplishments and the wins that you've made, and you're helping the person that's just like you, like that is when the pivot happens, and like there's no turning back.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Gained so much that it's not worth losing. And you know how you were saying, like people come in and they're like, you know, they've been using for like 6 months, and then they get into treatment like, oh, I need to get out there, I need to go to work, I need to do this. Slow it down.
My biggest thing was the females. You know, I was looking for what she could give me to validate how I feel. Kind of like a trophy. Look, I'm not as shitty as I feel or as I seem to be. You know, I got my shit right, but I really and truly don't. And for
it's
me,
like a drug.
It truly is. And I had to have some insight for sure. I was blind to see what was hurting me. I felt good when the moments were good. I was blind to see everything bad. You know, I can get through it. I can get through it. But you know, it was hurting me. And for me, you know, asking for that help and realizing, you know, it's time to get serious. It's time to let go of the things that I truly want, or that I, in the moment, made me feel right. You know, I want long term, not short term. So for me to go through that, you know, is, you know, it's really helpful. And finding myself each and every day wanting to be that person that helps someone like me, or to help someone that's going through, you know, what I've been through, having that insight. You know, I still have a lot to learn, but you know, it's a process. It takes time. And really, I wanted everything right now. I wanted, you know, oh, I'm better. I'm doing the right thing, so I must be right. You know, I must be better, but I wasn't. You know, I'm not. So for me, you know, knowing that everything takes time, you know, I got here almost a month ago. It hasn't even felt like that. You know,
that's true.
It truly and honestly hasn't felt like that. You know, I don't look at the clock. You know, if I want to buy things that I want to buy, you know, I gotta do the work, and you know, not bother about anything else. You know, like if I want something, I gotta put the work in. You know, it's gonna come over time, and that's what I've realized.
Yeah.
You know, and I was blind to everything. You know, everything you guys are saying right now is on point. And for someone like me, you know, if they've been through it, they've got the experience. They're not telling you just to tell you. They're telling you for a reason. They don't want you to go through what, you know, I've been through, you've been through, what everyone's been through. You know, they're going and doing these and saying these things to help you, to help me. And, you know, realizing that, you know, that someone actually wants to help me, you know, it's
life changing. Yeah.
Honestly.
And that right there is huge. Like realizing that we're not against you, we're here for you. And you know, a lot of times when people come in, their defenses are up, so they think that it's like, you know, we're saying this just because we want to, you know, set rules, but it's not the case. It's like you said, it's because we're trying to, you know, create an environment for you to be the best version of yourself. And even what you said is so crucial. I'm still learning. When you have 5-10 years sober, I still want to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Because we're always still learning. And I love that you have that humility about you, because even as a therapist, and like, you know, Tom was saying how he goes to a therapist, I still go to a therapist. Like, we're still growing. And the biggest sign of intelligence is someone admitting that they don't know everything, but they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Like going through this, I kind of like, I feel like it's school again. Like, how am I going to walk in school and know that I don't know everything and let the teacher teach me? But when I get here, act like I know everything. Act like
That's
I know.
Such a good analogy. Yeah.
We get a lot of people that
do that. Yeah.
And it's especially with people that have had, you know,
Time.
a lot of sobriety time put together. They're just closed off to, you know, oh, I've done all this, but well, then what the hell are you doing sitting here then? You know, I mean, why are you here?
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Right.
You know? So, Nick, I listen, we're going to wrap up. We're well over an hour here.
It's awesome. Good stuff.
The only thing I want to say to you, man, is just keep doing what you're doing. Obviously, you know, you're making a lot of people proud. You know, your parents, I'm sure, super proud of you, and hopefully, you know, we get to meet them in the future. And you know, just keep in mind with and this is I'm a fairly new parent. It's tough, you know, and until you have kids, it's really kind of hard to imagine what they're doing to raise. And your parents in particular, if I can remember correctly, there were 4 of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
4 boys.
Yeah.
You know, so,
around the same age too.
Yeah.
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 yeah. And so, you know, put yourself in mom's shoes. She's probably like, I know what my wife goes through, and I'm like, I don't know how the hell she does it.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, you got to show them some grace and understand. And I know you do. But man, I think they did a phenomenal job. You know, you're very respectful. You present well. You mean well. You know, had the pleasure of meeting your brother too. Same exact way. Like, both of you guys were like, man, you know, there's something to be said about, you know,
we have a soft spot for the
Southern
two of you, for
hospitality,
sure.
I suppose.
Yes.
You know, the yes, sir, no, sir. And I'm like, man, that's cool. But
Yeah.
with that being said, I think you're doing awesome, dude. And what I hope and pray for you is that you just keep this mindset, you know, and when you do struggle with something, because it's going to happen, you come to us, you allow us in the process, whether you're here as a client or down the road, months, years from now, when, you know, you haven't seen us in a while, we're only a phone call away.
Yeah.
You know, building your sober support network, doing the things and helping other people that are like you. You do all that stuff, Nick, and I can all but guarantee that you're gonna be fine, you know. Hopefully stay in Florida for the long term, you know, build a career, have a family, do the things that sobriety is supposed to allow us to do.
Right.
You know, and you're well on your way, and you're only 19. That is the cool part.
Right.
You know?
I mean, your insight. I mean, we have people in their 40s and 50s that haven't conceptualized recovery in the way that you have.
Yeah.
So age is irrelevant is what I'm saying. Like, but it's pretty amazing to see someone, man, at 19, you couldn't tell me anything. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, no, I feel like with everything that I've been through, you know, I'm older than 19. I've been through everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to see myself as 19. But, you know, coming into this, you know, being vulnerable, having an open heart and having open ears, you know, that's pretty much all I can do. Knowing that feelings pass and that I'll always keep learning really helps me.
Nicole, any final thoughts?
I'm just proud of Nick. I'm really proud of you, and I'm really grateful that I get to work with you. So thank you.
I know, right?
I know.
That is it.
And I like Tom too.
Yeah, thanks. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. And in the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns about your specific situation, you can always email us, Tom at realrecoverytalk.com and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, what we are trying to do is help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.